We will
There's
talk
the
about that
one
day.
in space. I think there's an Amityville in the Hood.
So you know you've lost control when your franchise goes into space, okay? Friday
Especially
the 13th.
when the title is
Leprechaun.
the name of the town.
Hello, friends out there. Welcome to another episode of the Scary Movie Project. I am, of course, your host, Matt. And today I have two wonderful people joining me. HorrorStruck podcast is here. I hope you've all heard of them because you haven't. Now you will, because they're going to join me today because we're going to talk about, two movies. So the Amityville Horror. It's great. Like the story is great, right? About the movies. You never know, right? We got the original 1979 and we have the 2005 remake. So I've always wanted to discuss both of them and think about what people think about them. So I have these two wonderful people to join me today. And guys, I'm going to let you guys tell the world who you are before we get started, please.
Yeah, my name is Cecilia. My co-host is Riley.
Hello, I'm Riley Ott.
Yeah, we started the HorrorStruck podcast as an exposure therapy experiment for Riley, who's always been afraid of horror movies. And I guess it worked.
Yeah,
we're talking to you right now.
Yeah, we're now horror movie experts after, I think, 3 years of hosting this podcast together.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, Riley and I have been best friends.
Great.
We've been best friends since first grade, and so this is the one area that we had never really shared a love of, but now that's changed. Mm-hmm. Now we can't escape from each other, forever entwined.
This is wonderful, because I have plenty of people I know who are like, horror movies, what the hell do you want to watch that crap for? So I think it's great that you guys are able to do this. This is very cool. And I'm glad, Riley, you're here and you're still around and you're still doing this. And we're gonna have fun today. Okay, so the story of the Amityville Horror is amazing. For me, it's without a doubt the greatest American haunted house story, correct? I mean, there's no question about that. That part, I think, for me at least, is true. I've been to the house. I've seen the house. I've been the awkward gawker on the street taking photos. And when you're there, literally, and I was there for maybe 15, 20 minutes, like 5 people stop and do the same thing. So, like, the story is it's fascinating to me. It can go on for days and days, and the stories on the internet, you could just read stuff for days, the rabbit hole, like, forever, right, with this stuff. So the book is really cool. The book is really scary, I think, too. I read it twice now, I guess. But movies, right? Some people, all they know is it's a haunted house in New York and it's a movie, right? Is it real? Is it? I don't know if you guys want. We can get into that stuff if you want. But like for movie-wise, if we just get into it, 1979, the movie book based on the book, George and Kathy Lutz. For those that don't know, the story goes, Ronald DeFeo Jr., the DeFeo family, they lived in a house, 112 Ocean Avenue, Amityville. It's an affluent neighborhood in Long Island. He really took a shotgun and killed his entire family in the middle of the night. Like, he killed all 5-6 people. That part, like, people kind of forget sometimes. That really happened. And the Lutzes moved in a year later. They bought the house with some of the furniture, which is so gross to me. And apparently, 28 days later, no coincidence to another great movie, they were so terrorized by the house and the demons and the ghosts, they rolled out. They just bounced, and they didn't take their stuff. They left and never came back. The story is it's all made up for money because they could pay for the house. You name it, the stories go on forever and ever. But the movie starring Margot Kidder and James Brolin, right? And 1979. I don't know. We'll start there, of course, right? Because that is the seminal film. That's like the start of the haunted house movies. I don't know, you guys, what are your thoughts? Right. I mean, what I said is basically what happens, right? They move into the house. The film starts off with, the quick shotgun blast and the scene of DeFeo killing his family. Then a year later. And I don't know. I watched it again recently. I don't know how you guys feel. You guys like Pet Sematary, I hope, right? Anyone out there loves Pet Sematary?
Yes. Favorite King books. Yeah.
So the music from Amityville Horror and Pet Sematary are like the exact same, correct? Like it is the opening music is exactly the same.
There's now that you bring that up, I didn't catch that, but there are a couple of music cues in Amityville that are just completely ripped off of other horror films, like the iconic shower music from Psycho. Is just
there is a part in there,
inserted into that at one point. So I completely believe that it is exactly the same.
Isn't that something? So, of course, now, I mean, the argument would be Pet Sematary ripped off Amityville Horror because that movie came later, but they're literally like the same. It's almost like, which is crazy. Am I listening to the same soundtrack? Starts off, and the family moves in, or they're trying to buy this house. What's the catch, right? How can it be this cheap? And the woman, obviously, of course, the realtor knows what's going on. And she discloses the information, and what does he say? There's no, houses aren't haunted or something. It's just people or whatever. People do bad things.
Yeah, there's that like iconic line that's like, well, houses don't have memories.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, people do.
that.
So of course, all the it's always cold in the house, and George can never get warm, and he wakes up at 3:15 in the morning, and
not a good sign.
No,
bad.
No, especially
walls.
when we have estimated that the DeFeo murders took place at the exact same time.
Exactly.
I estimate exactly
determine that.
3:15.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things where I remember listening to Stephen King say that he thought this movie was a great representation of like the fear of being a homeowner or something. I was like, I never thought about that. Right?
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I had listened to, because I really wanted to get Stephen King's interpretation of this, because the story is so similar to The Shining. And I looked it up,
Sure.
and he does have a quote, which is, I've read the book as well, and it was my exact same interpretation, was that George Lutz specifically, this is the story of a man who is in financial ruin and is kind of going through the stages of a breakdown because of that, because he's got, the IRS was investigating his business at the time. He just took out a mortgage on a house. He's got a huge new family. And I found that so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I never thought much about that either until I read it maybe a year or two ago as well, and thought that is really something. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the movie, like, when you're a kid, you watched it and it scared you, and it was a spooky haunted house story, and it's the one that started them all. And then, of course, as the film goes on, George gets crazier and crazier, kind of the odd things like the wedding, the $1,500 disappears, and Jody, the little girl, and with was it like the red eyes of the pig or whatever, and all these things, and the priest, of course, and the flies in the house, and you can't bless the house, and the nun that comes in, all the stories, right, that come in, they're all done like really well. And this movie is long. It's almost like 2.5 hours long, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I the end, of course, so I'm like a dog person. So at the end, when they almost leaves the house without the dog, I'm like, you better get your ass back there and get that dog. So of course he goes back and he gets the dog and he falls in that pit full of whatever, and they leave, and the storm and the weather is so intense, and it's just so like, totally buys into it. They shot it in Toms River, New Jersey. The house is kind of accurate. They wanted to shoot it in Amityville, like at the house, but that was never going to happen, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine.
That would have been so
Not
great,
with
though.
the history of the actual, because you mentioned it's an iconic haunted house story now, but it's also based somewhat in reality. There's that true crime element to these murders actually happened. Like Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his entire family.
Yes, he did.
And it's a little, we're going to talk about the remake in a while, and it's a little more disrespectful of that tragedy in the newer film.
Yeah, so there's the interesting part too, is Margot Kidder's character, Kathy, she goes to the library and finds the microfilm or whatever, and sees that Ketchum was on the land, and these different stories, and it's on what is the trope throughout the world? Indian burial grounds, right? Like everything's on an Indian burial ground, poltergeist, and all that stuff. So that was interesting too. And of course, they get out and they leave, and I think they moved to California. In reality, they don't mention the move; they just say they left without their belongings and they never came back. And so it's kind of that spooky story, right?
Yeah, they moved out west. I know that in the title card, not to skip to the very end, but they do have that sentence where they're like, they never came back for their things. And I found that so funny, because in reality, the very next day they sent movers to go get their stuff.
Of course they did.
And sent it
they
to
never
them.
went
They
back.
never
Yeah,
went
they
back.
never
Right.
The
physically
movers
went back.
went
There you go.
back.
But the
Here's
movers
some
went,
money,
and
get
the
my
movers
stuff.
said, like, it's fine, it's not haunted. We were fine the entire time we were in the house. But I would like to, I'm very skeptical, so I would like to look at this only as fiction while we talk about it.
Oh yeah, that's totally. I like that idea of it too. Just because
at least for my sake, so I'm not like a downer the whole time.
No, I mean, I think there's so much to it, so that's a good way to look at it. So, as just a ghost story and work of fiction like that, okay, cool. Like there hadn't been, I think one of the interesting things about this too was the haunted house stuff. Anything that happened in like a haunted place was back in the day was like a haunted manor, and we were in Europe somewhere, right? And there was old cobwebs and stuff. This is just a house, like in a neighborhood, and it's like crazy haunted, and people are just, and there's been, so much spooky stuff around it. So, do I love it? No, I don't love it. I like it. I like it. I think it's good. And I think there's definitely you had a good cast, right? Mario Kidder was Lois Lane, right? What's his face? Brolin was an established actor, like they had done stuff. It's really just the two of them kind of carrying it, and they have the priest. I forget his name, but it really is just kind of the two of them and the kids in the house. But overall, it made a ton of money. It made a ton of people went to see this movie, and it started that whole haunted house thing, like we said. Look at Poltergeist a couple years later. People kind of, just because it made money doesn't mean people loved it. It didn't get great reviews. But it's one of those films, too, that as time went on, people kind of like more and more kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm curious to I know you guys give a HorrorStruck review on it, too, so like a score. So what do you guys think of 1979 Amityville?
Oh, that's so hard because I think it has a huge, you're right, it's very long. It has a huge pacing issue. I don't think the end is climactic enough, although I do like that he saves the dog.
Gotta save the dog.
It's like a 3 out of 5 for me. Like, it's not anything that I'm like, oh, I really want to watch Amityville right now. But I don't have a bad time watching it.
I have, I think, a different perspective. When I read the book initially, I then became like very obsessed with the story. And like Cecilia said when we were just chatting before, I am a writer. And I wrote an entire pilot based around what I think actually happened. And I just, the way that the movie conflicts with what I have speculated about it, kind of, I don't know, it brings it down a lot for me. I don't enjoy the movie. I don't enjoy the way that the story is shown. I might give it like a 1.5 or a 2.
There you go.
I know. And that's the thing.
Good. I like it. A lot of people feel that way.
I'm very bitter, watching the movie back because I had done so much research on it, and I had watched it a couple times, and I'd watched the remake a couple times. Yeah. And I wrote this a couple years ago. It almost felt like I had to go catch up with an ex. I was like, I don't like how I feel when I watch it. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone. Okay. Hopefully. But I do agree with you. I think the cast is great. I think the acting is great. I think the pacing is horrible. I think it's way too long for what it is.
Yes.
But I do think, like Matt, you had said, pretty much up until this film, there was a completely different vibe to haunted house movies. And I do like the way that this kind of changed things, and it made at least American haunted house films a lot grittier and more realistic. So I understand why it is as iconic and why it's still in our culture regarded as a great haunted house movie, but it's not for me.
Okay.
That's fair. Yeah, it's like the grandfather kind of haunted. You can see all the tropes being born, as someone who really likes The Conjuring, Amityville walks so that The Conjuring could run.
Yeah, it's all of the newer haunted house movies took those tropes that were kind of created from this and utilized them way better. So it does deserve its flowers. It's like when you find out Grandpa's a racist and you have to start looking at him differently when you look back at at the past. I don't know if that's a good comparison at all. I hope that makes sense.
It makes sense.
I like it. It's The Haunting, the original. I think we reviewed The Haunting years ago. That's a movie where it's an old like 50s movie, 60s movie, but it has this great like sound design and all the right like that's kind of what you want, like the sound you want to be, you know, of you know, objects in the house or things that are scary, like slime and blood on the wall is not that scary. Like, I don't know. I mean, it depends, right? What you think, but and like we go off into like almost like a 70s porn at one point early in the movie with with the two of them. It's like,
they're
I mean,
newlyweds.
I know it's all good. Like but I don't necessarily need that in my horror movie necessarily, right? But I thought that
Not
was
unless
interesting.
it progresses the plot. I don't know.
It's not a Friday the 13th, right? I don't need naked people like running around, right?
That would be fine if there were then a scene of like, I don't know, so him getting stabbed in the neck while they're in bed like Kevin Bacon. That'd be cool.
Exactly. Arrow through the neck. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but it just did not progress the plot whatsoever.
No, not so much.
I can see why this got so popular, though, because at the time, people like really believed that the house was haunted. George Lutz was a great salesman.
Oh, man,
he had sold it so hard that I can see it's almost like Blair Witch. You go in thinking it's real. Yes. So even though you, like in this case, you know, these are actors you've seen before, it's got to be frightening.
But to be, you know, I can't think of anything right now that maybe I missed out on. I don't know. That I just wish I had been around when that book was written, and to have been able for a book about a haunted house to be a mainstream hit and then a movie. You know, for us, that would have been like heaven. Like, oh my God, this is mainstream and it's wonderful, because that stuff never happens. I mean, you have true crime stuff about awful things that happen, but nothing like this I can't think has happened right in the last 10, 15, 20. I don't know, but you know, to be around, that would have been so cool. I don't know. I missed out on that part, but what can you do? But
yeah, I think
there were funny things.
Though. There's not a lot of like, are people just so much more skeptical now, or is it like technology that you'd have to catch something like really damning evidence of ghosts for that to even happen?
Maybe it's saturated like crazy because of, you know, ghost hunters and ghost adventures and maybe things like that. Yeah. You've got so much of it that no one cares anymore. You can watch it whenever the heck you want. I can go with a camera and go shoot a ghost, quote unquote, ghost video right now if I wanted to. So yeah, maybe it's just a different time. There were things that I love though about how old it is. If you notice, I mean, we all love the phone on the wall with the long cord, of course, obviously.
Yes.
And did anyone catch the pencil sharpener mounted to the wall?
Oh, we had one of those in my
elementary
house.
School? Did you?
Yes.
In the garage. My dad had put one.
You know what?
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, we
it.
still do. We've got one in the closet.
Love it. Yep. It was just chilling there. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, I think stylistically, and I know this movie was made in the 70s, so obviously it's going to look like the 70s, but I think it does a really good job in comparison to, because we watched the 05 one, I think last night or the night before, and wow, does it feel like a 2000s movie. They did not try at all to bring any sort of... it was very
tried
much...
a little.
Which is such a nice segue.
I was hoping we'd talk about this one soon.
Yeah, so we none of us, we don't love the original, all right? 2005. Okay, so moving on to the remake. That is the remake. That was a movie I was hyped. I was pretty excited because so it was the company Platinum Dunes, if you guys remember, was Michael Bay was running the production company. He was making these company that was remaking horror movies for cheap, whatever you want to consider cheap, 10 million, I guess, whatever. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street, and they did Amityville Horror. I was pretty juiced for this movie, and I feel like I'm a little bit jaded in the fact my feeling on it because of my excitement for it, right? Ryan Reynolds, he's kind of a goof. Say what you want about him, I don't know. I am a fan of it. I think I like it better than the original, and I think I do because it's later in time. We have more availability to do effects with graphics and things like that. And I don't know. I just kind of, and what I like about it, so we can jump in, is the story is the same, right? Okay. It really is the exact same story with a couple twists in the fact that I like the fact that we go deeper into this Jeremiah Ketchum character and we kind of see this person, right? He has this pit of horror in their basement that George Lutz finds, right? And we see the character. She kind of read it. We get a little more info on who this person was, right? That's really the only big difference, I guess, right?
And the
like you
dog
said.
dies.
Well, I was going to say...
Are we allowed to just spoil? I assume spoilers are fine.
We're all about spoilers here. My goodness, yes. And, of course, the dog, yeah. So, anyway. But yeah, same story. So, they moved... Now, what I like the fact that we're in a, modern-day made film, but, they're clearly... We're back in the 70s again. The way they dress, the cars they drive, things like that. We're obviously still back in that time. And there were just a couple scenes that are remade, like the babysitter scene with what's her face from the G.I. Joe movie. I can't remember her name. She's the babysitter, the hot babysitter who says,
babysitter. No more mousy girl.
I don't need a babysitter. I'm old enough. And then he comes to the dad. Still don't want a babysitter. And like the George Lutz character going crazy. And I like it better. I feel like it's not as all over the place. Is it great? No, it's not great, but the effects are kind of spookier sometimes. The scares are kind of better. I mean, the Chloe Grace, what's her face, who's like a star now, right? She's like 5 years old in this movie. The climbing on the roof scene, the boathouse stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, he kills the dog when he thinks it's someone else, which is terrible. But most of the stories and the elements are there, but I just thought there was more to it. The house is totally different too, which is interesting. It's like this giant, enormous, like manor almost. They kept like the windows, the scary eye looking windows and everything. I like the priest scene better. He's not as dramatic. And when he talks about the bear, I love the part where he sees the daughter and he says, "Hey, I want to tell you, Mrs. Lutz, that bear your daughter has belonged to the DeFeo girl." "Oh, well, she must have found it." She goes, "No, she couldn't have found it. I knew them well. She was buried with that doll." And that part was like, "Oh, okay, it's a little bit spooky."
I think that's a good reveal within the movie.
Yeah,
it's very urban legend. I've heard so many urban legends with that kind of twist.
There you go. So I like that. Like I said, maybe I'm jaded because I was just so happy and I was so excited to see this movie, and I've seen it like 4 or 5 times probably. But I think I like it better. I think I like it better. It's not as long. Just
that's the part that
Ryan
I like
Reynolds.
better.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love the Ryan Reynolds. I mean, some of his lines, he is just mean. Like when he's talking about like the her husband that died, I guess, right? He's sitting there talking at dinner one, like, "Oh, my father always said this," and he goes, "And their dad isn't around to do that now, is he?" And it's like, "Ooh, dude, that's deep." And then when he's disciplining the kids after the babysitter thing, because the babysitter tells the kids all the stuff that happened, they're like, "This is gross. We don't want to live here." And
we are shocked that the babysitter told our kids
who would say such a
about
thing?
the murder house when she used to babysit the murdered kids. Oh, I'm so shocked.
And she
said, "Your babysitter's better."
I love that. And then and she tells her, all that stories. And the mom says, who told you that? And she goes, "Babysitter." And I love Ryan Reynolds' line, "Goddamn babysitter's an idiot."
The one thing he was right about in the entire movie.
Right. And he's slowly going crazy. And at the end, all of a sudden, though, he's on the boat and we're away from the house and he's fine. It's like, just keep driving. I tried to kill you like 7 times, but it's all good.
It's fine. I killed your dog, but no worries.
Oh, man. So
I will say the part with the dog, I think is the part between the movies, the difference that I hate the most is that he kills the dog in this one. And I know it's not presented as like he hates the dog, so he kills it on purpose.
He doesn't know,
hallucination. Right. But I think at the end of the 79 film, that is kind of how you know that there is still any humanity left in George.
Because he goes
back and is willing to risk his own life to get this dog for his family. Yep. And in this one, it's like, why the hell did they save him at the end?
And it happens
just leave
like
him there.
halfway through, right? He just,
The fact that she doesn't shoot him when he's about to kill her son, I was like,
bizarre.
Margot Kidder would have shot him. I'm pretty sure she would have shot him.
And the boat scene when she hits the trigger on the boat and it pulls her hair and she gets out and she's you lost your mind.
Can you do that? Like, can you rewind hair like that? I feel like it would have just ripped her scalp off.
I don't know a lot about boats, but the motor wasn't. I don't think it was running, so I don't think that they. I don't know, but that was. I mean, it was a movie scene. What are you gonna do, right? But yeah, I'd be a little upset at my spouse if they did that to me. I'd be a little upset.
A little tiny bit, you would think.
Yeah, I think that's one of my problems with the remake is I don't really buy their relationship.
Okay.
I feel like the two movies remind me of the difference between like the book version and the movie version of The Shining.
Ooh,
Like
interesting.
in the original, I see George as like he's a great stand-in dad, he's a good guy. Whereas in the remake, I'm like, he's always been kind of insane, huh?
Right.
Like,
okay.
I never buy Ryan Reynolds as like a great partner or like a good stepdad.
Well, and I think the
he doesn't do
difference
scary
between
stuff.
that is, in comparing it to The Shining, George in the original is slowly losing his mind. He is not, like, obviously he's agitated by the other characters because of this development, but he's not actively trying to kill them until the very end, and he's not just
Right.
turning into a dick rather than having a nervous breakdown. So I think it is portrayed really well with James Brolin's character. And I don't think Ryan Reynolds is a bad actor by any means.
No.
I think with the material they gave him, this was really the only direction he could go. And I think there are some genuinely scary scenes, like the wood chopping with him and the oldest son. He plays that
that's a
so
good scene.
well.
Making him hold the wood. We're having fun. We're having a good time.
Yeah,
I
wonder if
We're friends.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I wonder if the disconnect with Ryan Reynolds. I read an interview that he did where he said that he just didn't talk to the kids at all, and so it's like that's why it seems so
I
weird
heard about this.
And I was like, I guess it's a choice, but I feel
want
like
to get too close. So when he went nuts on him, they wouldn't be like, "What the hell's wrong with this guy?" Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, but I think it affects his performance because I don't buy that he ever liked the kids. So that shift isn't as prevalent as it is in the original, where you really kind of feel for him.
I love the scene where the babysitter gets stuck in the closet and the little girl shows up and she sticks her finger in the little hole. Oh, it's gross.
I wish that was the first time we had seen the little girl, though. I think they show the ghost too quickly in the remake. Like, if they had held off and that was the first time you saw that little girl, how more terrifying would that scene be?
Right. Seriously.
Yeah, I do like the ambiguity of that in the original, because the first hour of the movie is really them just setting up the atmosphere and kind of showing you how the house and possibly supernatural elements are affecting each character individually, until we get to the end and we finally see, like, oh, this was real, which I think kind of takes away from it. But yeah, they jump the gun in that remake, because they show the Jody ghost within the first like half hour, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what? Scares and you hear the same things with any movie. This one uses all the tropes and it does all this scary. I mean, it works. Like, I don't know, unless you're changing the game immensely and you're coming up with something brand new. Bumps in the nights and scary jump scares and things like in the mirror. I did like the scene a lot, where the one of the sons has to run to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And it reminds me of the scene from The Sixth Sense when he has to remember that, right? When he's running across. And that's a pretty spooky scene, because it's all, what little kid is not afraid of running to the bathroom in the middle of the night, right? Like,
that's so
scared
funny.
Everybody.
I was thinking about that. I watched that scene and I was like, I feel like I've seen another movie where a little boy runs to the bathroom and doesn't shut the door. And I was like, just shut the door. Just shut the door.
So
just
reminds
shut the door.
me of that, right? And then that monster like drooling in like the mirror is gross. I just loved it. And then, George getting in the bathtub and the woman trying to drown him. You're almost waiting for the woman like spoke about the Shining to come out, the dead woman in The Shining. They started laughing. You're almost waiting for her to come out of the scene.
I do think, there are a handful of good scares in this.
Yeah.
I think that bathroom scene in particular, when whoever this woman is that looks like Gollum shows up in the mirror, I think that one is done pretty well. I think I am of a very different opinion about the Ketchum storyline, where I don't necessarily understand why they lean so hard into the native burial ground stuff in this one. So I don't know that it's explained great by the end of it, but I do think there are a couple of really good visuals, even if maybe they don't make the most sense.
Yeah, I understand why they did it. I don't think it necessarily works, but the idea that it isn't just the DeFeo murders that like cursed the house. There was something always there.
Yeah, there you go.
So I get why they did it. It just didn't quite land for me.
I like how it ties into like why those murders happened as well, and it's not just a very depressing story of like, oh, this guy went crazy.
Yeah.
That's interesting, right? That's that was the big '80s thing too. Burial grounds and Native Americans.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother conversation of why people feel that way. But and I mean, violence wise, like when he slits his own throat right down there and he covers George in it,
Yeah.
and he's just like,
yeah.
bathing in it, like. For a gore hound, like it doesn't get better than that, right? That was pretty awesome.
like that dream sequence at the end,
I love
regardless
that.
of like the Ketchum stuff maybe not tying in well. I think they could have done a little bit better of revealing it was a dream, because it really does feel like, oh, did he go into the basement? Did he actually find this?
Right.
Then it kind of takes you out of it for a second. You're like, oh, wait, no, okay, he was asleep.
And
I mean, I definitely like their visual take on the basement as opposed to the original, where it's just like a red lit Harry Potter space under the stairs.
Like, exactly? Yeah, that was pretty. And
then a pool of red paint.
That's it. The red.
That's so strange if you like know about the red room as well, because in reality, it was just a closet in the basement. It was not closed off at all. They did not have to like break down cinder blocks to get to it. It was just out in the open.
Yeah,
so it's funny how
cinematic to break down the wall.
Of course, it's funny how like fictionalized that became just for cinematic value.
My friend has a house and he has this kind of crawl space kind of spot in his basement like that.
Oh, a murder room.
Right, when he first moved in, I stuck my head in there and I thought, I don't really want to sit in here for an extended period of time, but it reminds me of this. But yeah, I mean, what did you think of? Was it Melissa George, the one? She plays Kathy Lutz in the new one, right?
It's Kathy.
She's in 30 Days a Night, right? Isn't she also? I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
She's kind of.
I know her from Grey's Anatomy.
Was she in Grey? Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Wait, yeah, she like years back when they like got the first crop of new interns.
Oh my gosh!
20 years ago.
The show's been on forever.
It's been on a long time, right?
Long.
Right.
I don't. She's all right.
Hate her. Yeah. I mean, you know, too. It's one of those things where you have to look at it like Halloween remakes and Texas Chainsaw remakes. You have to go in and just be like, I've never seen this original. Like I haven't seen it. I have to just view this in this mindset, or you don't. I don't know. But
if you compare her to Margot Kidder, there's no way in hell. Like, she was an icon. She is that role. So yeah, you kind of have to go in with a blank slate.
I met Margot Kidder at a con years ago. Obviously years ago, because
unfortunately she's passed.
She committed suicide.
She did.
But she was really cool. She was nice to meet. She was super friendly, very nice. I have a signed picture in my house of her. Yeah, that was a Lois Lane, for goodness sakes, right? I mean, she's Superman. Yeah. But yeah, she was good in it. I think that's I think the priest in the original is kind of over dramatic. And I like the flies scene better in this, because he goes to the radiator and it just blasts him and knocks him over.
Funny. It's so funny.
It's like, oh my God, right?
I will say, you know what? One of my favorite parts of the original is kind of the priest and him struggling with his
beliefs. My God. And the car crash scene, forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when for whatever reason the supernatural can like reach way far outside the house and cause a car crash.
Flip the hood of your car and wow.
I don't know. I think just in terms of comparing the two, I think the original does a better job, because you can definitely look at each character's beliefs and kind of see how they're viewing the events of the house, like whether or not they're real is kind of dependent on what they believe in. And I don't think they wrap up the priest storyline in the original at all. Like, he just never makes it back to the house. But I think it was the start of an interesting question. And in the newer one, I'm not even sure. And they cut out a lot of the religious stuff. But other than being like a last-ditch effort to get the evil out of the house, I don't know why they even included the priest.
Yeah, I can imagine how much more terrifying the original was for probably audiences at the time, because they're a good Catholic family who are, you know, her sister is a sister.
Yes, and they make the point at the beginning that where should I hang the cross, right? Like all that stuff, and then the doorknobs upside down with and all that stuff. Like, oh yeah, they make a point to show that for sure.
Yeah, who designed that doorknob?
Oh yeah, that was
I would buy one for my house just because
choice.
it was in that movie, though. I would do it.
I think I would too.
There was a shirt at a show I went to once. I don't know. I'm still kicking myself for this. I don't know why I didn't buy it. It said Amity Realty, and it said, "For God's sakes, move in."
I like that.
That's good.
And I don't know why I didn't buy that damn shirt. But yeah. Yeah, so I mean, look, the stories are the same in both films, right? It's how we're going to tell it, right? A couple differences, little things here and there, I guess. Yeah. The scene at the end, I like the storm scene in the remake of climbing up on the. I'm going to go real deep and just talk about it. It reminds me of Halloween 4, if you guys are out there listening to Halloween 4, where they climb on the wall and try to escape Michael Myers. I don't know. And at the end is kind of, they get in the boat, they drive away, and he looks up and just all of a sudden he's fine. And he says, just keep driving. And it's like, that's an awful lot of stuff that just happened that you're just able to shrug off in like 8 seconds, dude. But, whatever. I don't know.
And I'm sure there are lifelong lingering effects that we don't get to see because the movie is 90 minutes long with 8 minutes of credits.
Yeah.
So you'd think we could at least do like a jump forward to like, oh, they're fine but still affected, but no, that's just...
And that's what I kind of wanted to see too, right? So there's two things that I'm left with in both movies, right? Overall, regardless of zillion sequels, whatever, we'll get to that in a second, but my interest still is in, I want a film about the DeFeo family. I want a movie about what happened in that house with them. Now,
they were supposed to make one.
But have
you seen Amityville 2, The Possession?
A long time ago. It talks more about it, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's, and I don't know if they changed the names. It's been a while since I watched it. But that one, and I've seen a good handful of Amityville movies at this point, I think it's the best interpretation of, if you're going with the demon story and the devil made him do it and whatever, then it's your best bet for something with the DeFeos that isn't
I need to
like
rewatch
super sensationalizing, but also like definitely is.
So these sequels, I've seen a good bit of them too until I finally stopped because they're crap. And I mean...
There's so many.
I think I read something. There are 35 films with the title Amityville in them.
That's it?
They said.
I feel like there should be more.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely more. I know canonically the only other ones that are in the actual Amityville series are 2, The Possession, and then 3, the 3D one.
I think there's a 4th that's part of it too.
There's
maybe not.
One.
It's
I think
confusing.
The 4th one's about like a lamp, like an evil lamp that like.
It's like the worst movie ever. Yes, I think so.
That sounds right up my alley.
A possessed lamp. Who doesn't want to watch that?
That's like purchased at a garage sale and moved to California so that they're not locked into being.
Oh man, we're just waiting for a new Conjure film with the Warrens going to get that lamp.
That is a cursed object. Yes, that our friend of the show J.W. Oker would be in his book of cursed objects. A lamp, yes, for sure. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yes, it is pretty terrible.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so overall, I'm gonna say I like them both, right? Because again, I love the story of Amityville. I'm more into the, hearing stories. I had a paranormal investigator on the show. He's done investigations there.
Oh, wow.
I know a guy who did it. Oh, for folks out there, please watch Amityville Origin on MGM. It's a 3-part miniseries. Producer was on a previous episode, was involved in it. It's excellent. It's really, it's all just a documentary about what happened. And it's very, very thorough. Very, very good. Real stuff. You can watch this stuff on Travel Channel and on demand anywhere you want. It's streaming everywhere, right? So I love the story. Like, again, for me, it's like the ultimate haunted house. It's an American icon of that. It's the greatest ghost story in our country, I believe. And the movies deliver what you need, basically. Do I want more out of them? Yeah. But, you put a gun to my head kind of situation. I'm taking the remake, honestly. I think I like it better. I don't know. I don't have necessarily reasons why. I guess it's got a little bit scarier, maybe. But that's my vote. But so overall, what do you guys, give me your ratings? What do you guys think about original, remake? Where do you stand?
Ooh, that's such a hard question.
What's our final verdict here?
I almost want to take the remake just because it's shorter. But I think that
runtime is killing you, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is. I don't know.
It's like 2 hours and 12 minutes. It's long. It is.
Yeah, that original is really long.
Yeah.
But I do think it makes sense why it's so long, the way they build it. Oh God, I don't know. Do you know what your answer is?
Of just which one I like better?
Yeah.
Or I still like the original better, but I get why people might like the remake more. It's not anything where I like, Matt, I think you're objectively wrong. I think it just comes down to like personal preference, like what you want in a story. And for me, I wanted the relationship between the couple more, so it's stronger in the original, which is why I think I like the original more.
Okay. Yeah.
I almost might take the remake, runtime aside and my personal biases aside. I really like the story between George and the kids, and I think they could have done it a lot better. But I like the way that they focus more on his interactions with them in the remake. I think it's more realistic to what the kids' actual feelings towards him were, especially if you watch Daniel Lutz, the oldest son, has a documentary that he made about his experience, and he talks about his parents. And I find that the absolute most interesting thing about all of the Amityville speculation and stories and all of that. So I might actually agree. I think maybe the remake, at least for me, has a little more value in what I'm looking for.
Okay. There's a zillion sequels out there, too, that...
so many.
Do you have a favorite sequel that you have seen so far? Do you have any recommendations?
I haven't seen any of them in so long. I honestly would need to sit down and just start going through them again. I literally watched them when I was a kid. I really did, and I have not.
Okay.
They were. I didn't like them at the time, so I gave up on them. So I need to now, with a more mature palate, go back and look at some of them again. I mean, yeah,
I'll
watch
anything. There's a couple
anything.
that I don't think are terrible, but I do think... obviously, they're just using the notoriety of that name, and half of the time have absolutely nothing to do with the Amityville house at all.
Oh, Amityville Dollhouse. Isn't that name of one of them?
That is, yeah.
I was going to watch that one. I love doll horror. It's right up
I
my
haven't
alley.
seen that one, so maybe maybe we'll
there's
talk about that one day.
In space. I think there's an Amityville in the hood.
So you know you've lost control when your franchise goes into space, okay? Friday
Especially
the 13th.
When the title is
Leprechaun.
the name of the town.
Yes, when you've gone to space, you know we're done. We're off the rails. We're finished at this point. All right, so we looked at it as a work of fiction, but I have to ask it. Both of you, what are your thoughts? What happened in there? What happened in that house? Is that all a story by the Lutzes, or is that place haunted?
Yeah, I'm very much in the mindset that George Lutz was in financial ruin.
Oh, yeah.
And he saw this opportunity and realized, I can get book deals, I can get movie deals, I will fabricate this story and then benefit from that for the rest of my life. And he did.
I mean, can you hate on him for that, though? I don't know.
I mean, I think you can definitely read into that he was maybe an alcoholic and an abusive parent, so... don't like that.
He was no angel.
And think it definitely played into what he was doing in lying to the entire public. But, whatever. I don't know. I didn't know him.
I think the house could be haunted. I think what George Lutz said happened is not true. But if you believe in ghosts...
slime dripping from the walls.
No. But if you believe in ghosts... The idea that the family was killed so suddenly, like, if you are one to believe in that, I could see how the house could be haunted, but I don't think there's demons.
You know what?
No.
One thing I can't get out is, if some real estate agent told me what happened, I'm sorry, I'm not, as much as I love this stuff, I'm not going to live in that house. I don't think. And what really gives me just the
property
creeps.
tax would kill me. That's a huge house.
I've always said to people, you know what? I mean, like I said, I've been to it. It's not that enormous. The movie definitely makes it look bigger. I mean, it's not the same house. There is a boathouse, but it's not this massive, expansive land. It's kind of the house, and there's the yard with the pool in the back, and the boathouse. There's not a ton of, but whatever. I mean, it's a very nice house. But
when was the last time you saw it? Because I heard that they redid the entire side of the house with the horrifying demon windows.
Yeah, so when I went, the windows had been redone. Those rounded windows were gone. They're square now.
Oh.
But
Yeah,
2008,
that's the best
2009, I probably saw it. So I haven't been up there and seen it in a long time. But
So
and it
it's
keeps
been a
selling.
while.
It's been a minute,
And
they
new
keep
owners
selling
have
it.
not had those experiences.
No owners since the last have they've had any problem. The only problems they had, the house keeps selling because the reality is, folks are just tired of living there because they get bothered by idiots like me who keep coming by constantly, or folks that knock on their door or trespass on their property, and they're like, "Screw this! This isn't any fun. This isn't. I don't want to live here." So,
and that's part of my issue with George Lutz as well. Is like, obviously, your whole family is going to be like the children do not want this notoriety. They have no say in that.
No.
And you are forcing this story onto them for the rest of their lives. And I just, if you're looking at it at the perspective that he fabricated the whole story, I think that's very irresponsible.
That's a great point, actually. You know, maybe he thought the other way, where I'm going to make a bunch of money and give it to my kids, and I don't have to worry about it. But that's I didn't even think about that. But that's a good point. But yeah, the whole fact that gets me the creep still is that, you know, they bought this house and they bought some of the furniture, like the bed frames. Like, dude, they were killed in the bed frames. That is gross, dude. That to me is, you know, of all the special effects and whatever, that's gross. Like, that for real is disgusting. I would never do something like that. Oh my God. But anyway.
No, and that's where you're absolutely right. Like, I wish there was a story more true to what happened, because the reality of it is so much more disturbing, and the way that the parents actually handled purchasing this house is just the scariest part of all of it.
It's crazy, man. So, you know what? Everyone out there, do yourself a favor. Read the book. If you haven't read the book, read it. Read again if you have.
I've got it actually sitting right here.
Excellent. I don't own it. I should buy it at a yard sale or a horror show for like 50 cents one of these days or something.
They always have
read it.
They always
I've got
have
this
it
as well. But Jay Anson wrote another book following the Amityville Horror, because they basically said, "Hey, you're a hack. You're never gonna, write anything better again." And he wrote this book called 666 that is essentially the exact same story, but it's about a haunted house that every so many years just appears in a random spot in the world, and it's the same haunted house every time. It's very bizarre.
Wait, is that's a season of Channel Zero? That's what that reminds me of.
It kind of is, yeah, where it's like an actual like haunted attraction. This is just a random house that shows up in the middle of, a field or wherever.
Okay.
But Jay Anson was a very weird guy. I do recommend reading his book, because I think he fabricated some stuff as well. So I think it's a collective issue of people sort of adding their own perspective onto the actual story.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't read the book in forever. I gotta go back to it. And you know what? In production wise, in this film, nothing blew my mind with how they shot it. Really, I don't know. I mean, it was okay, right? There was nothing great. Some of the effects were cool. The colors were kind of cool in the remake. The special effects may have been better, but that was merely just because of, it was made 30 years later, so technology is just so much better anyway.
Yeah.
On that note, but you read the book, watch the movies, drive to Amityville and go to 112 Ocean Avenue. Go see the house.
Bother the owners.
Hey,
don't do that. Don't do that.
Now,
I was on a public street. I'm allowed to take photos. I think it's 108 now, but what the heck difference does that make?
Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. Like,
don't go knock on their door.
Please don't go knock on their door. Please don't go step on their. Don't even step on the sidewalk. Don't knock on their door. Leave them alone. But yeah, otherwise, great story. I mean, great. Just folklore story, just overall, I guess, Americana in a way. I guess
it's a great thing to speculate on. Yeah,
right.
Do you
that's
think,
very cool.
Do you think the story of the DeFeos would have lived on without the movie or the book?
That is a wonderful question that I don't think I've ever been asked. Wow. It would just be another true crime story of a multiple homicide in a small town, right?
You know
I don't
what?
know.
I actually
Yeah.
think maybe it would.
We wouldn't be sitting here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean,
That's
obviously,
true.
right?
Well, unless we had true crime podcasts, and then we
Yeah.
would. But I think
That's true.
that you
That's
might
true.
be onto something. I think maybe the answer is yes, but only because there are a couple of unexplained things that happened that night. Like the family, they were all shot with a shotgun.
No one
No
heard
one in the house
anything.
woke up.
And
yeah,
the
no one in
neighbors
the
are
neighborhood
so
heard
The
strange.
anything.
neighbors are right on top of you. They're not far each other. They're
Yep.
right there.
Yeah.
That is
And they're-
crazy. Yes.
Well, and there was also like they did a toxology report on the people in the house because they didn't even wake up, and there weren't any drugs in their system. Nothing.
Nuts.
So I do
Weird.
think that there are some unanswered things that maybe people would
Yeah,
still be talking about. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know.
I don't know. Where I live, there's a pretty infamous murder that I'd never heard of until I had moved here.
Oh, really?
And it's about like a woman in the 30s who like killed her kids. They
yeah.
found them the next day and she had put notes everywhere and nobody knows why she did it. All they know is that she was having stomach problems.
Oh, my God.
But I'm sure if they made a movie on that, people would know about the murders. But
The stories
because
that are
there
out
isn't.
there, yeah, I mean, the stories that are out and people are crazy, and people do insane things. And yeah, I mean, it's just this so happens that this became a huge, giant best-selling book, and another story. There could be a story of something even worse that we're not even aware of because we just never heard of it happening in another town somewhere. I don't know, but that's a great question. That really is. That's really interesting.
I think because it's justified by like demons, it's easier for people to understand, because the thought of this son killing his whole family is so horrifying that not having an answer, people can't cope with that.
Yeah.
So that's it. Ronald DeFeo Jr., he died about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And he died in prison, obviously. They've never revealed his cause of death, by the way. Not that I've heard, at least. Unless
Well, and he wasn't that old either. He was, I think, 69 when he died.
Yep. So they never said how he died. Not that really, I mean, I'm not saying it adds anything. It's kind of interesting in a way. They never said how he died. So I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, but I don't know.
I don't know. And I think to your point, though, especially being in the 70s, like if this story had come out now and we knew what we know about Ron DeFeo Jr., that, you know, he had drug issues, his parents were abusive, he was sort of ostracized by his community because of like alleged connections with the mafia.
Yeah.
I think it would make more sense now and maybe wouldn't get as much notoriety. But yeah, because of the demon stuff and them having to have a way to, you know, make sense of it, that might be why people latched onto that story so hard for so long.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's a great story. For me, it is, at least personally. I can never read enough or watch enough, or anytime something about it's on, I'm watching it. Well, that's the Amityville Horror. So thank you both. This has been wonderful. Thank you for joining me on this please let everyone know where they can find you guys, where they can look you up. How can they find out more about what you guys do on your great show?
Oh man, we're all over the place. I think social media, we're HorrorStruck Pod on Instagram, on Twitter. We've got a Facebook that we barely use. We've got, what else do we have? We've got
Riley does all of our social media, so I just rely on them.
Yeah, we've got brand new merch. If you guys like Yellow Jackets, we just put up some team shirts that are actually selling really well. I'm surprised.
Nice.
We've got a Patreon if you want to listen to some, like, we watch movies together and throw the audio up. So if you want to have like a group movie night with us,
nice.
You can do that whenever you want. Yeah, we got some fun stuff going on.
Good. So Riley, Cecilia from HorrorStruck Podcast, Amityville Horror was our remake and originals, our topic. Thank you both for joining. You guys know, everyone knows how to find us. Rate, review, call in, send emails. Tell us what is a great movie. Tell us if Amityville Dollhouse is any good. Should I watch it?
Yeah, let me know. I love doll horror.
Right,
so.
exactly. Doll horror is a good thing.
I love hearing people's perspectives on these movies. So yes, I might be a naysayer, but like, please, I love hearing this stuff.
Exactly. This is what it's all about. It's all subjective, as they say, right? Yeah, send us your emails, suggestions for film, stuff you want me to talk about, who we need to have on this show. We want you guys back at some point, of course, always. You guys know where to find us on scarymovieproject.com, Instagram, Gmail to email us. You know where to find us.
The Scary Movie Project podcast. Learn more at thescarymovieproject.com.